Okay. Renee, are you ready?
Ready.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order this morning's meeting of the Architectural Review Planning Board of Thursday, May 25th, 2023. With that, Renee, please will you take the roll call?
Mr. Roach.
Here.
Mrs. Power. Here. Mr. Canfield.
Here.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Here.
Chairman Murphy.
Here, thank
Let
you.
it also note that our town manager, Greg Dunham, Assistant Town Attorney, Trey Nazaro, and myself are also present.
Thank you. And now have we all had a chance to read the minutes from the meeting of April 27th? And if there aren't any additions, changes, could I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mr. Roach.
Yes.
Mrs. Power. Yes. Mr. Canfield.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. And with that, and the additions, withdrawals and deferrals, we do have a change of order of applications this morning. Item 3 that was on our packet is now becoming item 1. And that's what the application will be hearing first this morning. And after that, it'll just be the same sequence as in our packet. So with that, the meeting dates for June, July and September, there anybody advance notice of not being available?
I told Renee.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And now we move on to the public hearing part of the meeting, and any ex parte communication relating to what's presented to us this morning.
Oh, yes. On the application with the school, I did speak with Headmaster Greg. So I wanted to alert that.
Thank you, Bob.
I had cocktails with the Smiths because they're next door neighbors to me. We did not really go over anything on the school issue.
Thank you, Curtis. And now, Renee, please could you administer the oaths to anyone who wishes to speak this morning?
Stand and raise your right hand. Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Make sure I get your names if I don't know you.
And thank you. And so with that, can we go on to the new item number 1? Carlos.
Good morning. I'm Carlos Linares. I'm with Randall Stoft Architects. We are presenting today 3813 North Ocean Boulevard. We were here presenting this project about a month ago. The reason that we are here today, we're asking for 3 items on this special exception in order for us to be able to extend a lanai in the backyard. That's okay. As you may be able to see, this is the project. This is a rear photo of the existing home. We have been in front of the board to submit for some renovation to the home. Go to the next slide, please. This is an aerial shot of the project that we are presenting today. What we are trying to illustrate in here is that we have 2 properties, one to the south, one to the north, that will illustrate how far east these structures are have been built, and I'll show you why this is relevant. We could go to the next slide, please. These are photographs from the north property facing south. The closest of the structures that you could see is the existing lanai. And the reason that we are showing these photographs is to be able to illustrate to you guys that this particular property here does not have the proper privacy. And as you can see the property to the south, how far east that property is as well. Can we go to the next slide? These are also the photo to the left is a photograph from the fourth floor of the north property, which is one elevation higher. The photo to the right is from the property looking north from their backyard. And you may be able to see that you could clearly see the most of the structure that has been east of the of our property as well. Go to the next slide, please. Some additional photos just to illustrate the mass of the structure to the north and how that structure is able to look down into our property currently. So and you could see pretty much more or less the vegetation. The vegetation is really not going to help even, you know, once we update this vegetation, it's still not going to get us that privacy that this property really requires. This is the site plan illustrating what we are proposing. The red dashed line represents the coastal control line at this particular property. If we go to the next slide, I have an enlarged version of what is really happening in here. Again, the red dashed line represents the coastal construction line. We are here today asking for special exceptions. Number one, a reduction of the rear setback to allow us to be able to move or increase the lanai towards the east to be able to achieve a little bit more privacy that we are seeking for a property. This illustrates, I'm sorry, that's okay. This illustrates how much we're going, what we're proposing with the lanai. We're proposing to extend it 11'8" is what we're proposing to do. We are also proposing that also allows us to do that by us requesting the reduction of setback in the back. And we'll go through the points as far as what the reduction of setback means. The third item, I believe this is a little bit more minor. We're trying to just clean up the rear terrace, and we're also requesting for us to be able to go slightly beyond the coastal control line. We're asking for 5'7" at the south, nothing on the north, but obviously as soon as you're at the north, you're already encroaching into the coastal control line. We could go to the next slide, please. This was the floor plan that was previously approved by the town. We had requested for a pergola as a, you know, trying to find ways on how we could get privacy from the north property mainly, which is obviously the bigger structure. We'll go to the next slide. This is the floor plan on what we're proposing today. We're proposing that 11'8" of the lanai. There is an existing lanai there now. All we're asking for is just an extension of it. So the extension obviously ties it better to the architecture rather than the trellis itself. We're keeping the same style architecture. We're keeping all the arches that are currently there. What we're doing is just doing the extension in order for us to try to get that privacy into our backyard. This is just a slide showing what we're trying to do. Same exact floor plan, just to point out what that is. This is the existing residence. The lower right-hand corner of the house is what you will see on what is really happening. All we're doing is just adding one more arch to the existing lanai. We're not increasing the height of the structure. The height of the structure is to remain in the same style of architecture. Go to the next slide, please. At the rear is not going to change. It currently has 3 arches. The upper drawing to the right is where the lanai is. We're going to mimic those 3 arches just being pushed towards the rear of the property. I'm sorry. At the bottom drawing, all it is just going to be a wall with protruded arches. It's not going to be a transparent arch. That's what it is currently, and we're going to maintain the same style as it is. We could go. The extension of the terrace was submitted to DEP for their review already, and they've seen no problem at all. They've given us their approval based on just us encroaching into the coastal control line. This is exactly what we have on our site plan. So we're extending the terrace 5.5 feet on the south side only. The remaining part of it will be just turf. And then we also have a dry stack retaining wall that is no more than probably like 30 inches in height from the existing grade to our proposed grade in order for us to be able to have a level terrace out there. We're not proposing for that wall to be any higher than the proposed grade. It's just whatever is required for that to be. Obviously, it's been submitted to DEP. DEP does not see any problem with this at all. Go to the next slide, please. The lanai extension was also discussed with DEP, and they had also giving us an approval for that. Now, at that point when we submitted, we didn't know exactly how much we were going to be able to have. Obviously, we've worked with staff on what staff may recommend for us to be able to submit based on the special exception guidelines. So they had previously approved up to 12 feet. We're not asking for 12 feet. Obviously, we're not able to get that because due to the FAR restriction that we have in Gulfstream, we're just going out to whatever Gulfstream will allow us to do. So that will be 11'8". So it's a little bit less than what DEP has, already seen.
2 inches.
Yes. We could go to the next slide, please. Ownership has discussed this with mainly the property owners, the association to the north. He's had multiple discussions, and I think the association does agree with our client that both properties do want that privacy between one another. This is not impacting them in any way. Visual wise, it's not blocking their view to the ocean. So this is a letter that I believe the town also has. We just wanted to point it out. These are just the bullet points on the FAR on what we're asking for. I've gone with staff through the math to be able to make sure that we are that the right number is proposed. We are proposing to the existing unenclosed spaces currently is 570. The lanai extension will be 264. which is a total of 834 square feet. 1/3 of that is 278 square feet. So we've done the math. We've worked with staff, very closely to make sure that that number is correct. And that is what we're asking for to increase of the FAR is 278 square feet. I believe staff could attest to that. That is correct. That number does calculate correctly. The bullet point as far as the reduction of the setback in the back is due to that we are abutting a non-residential structure currently. This is something that obviously you don't see much in the town of Gulfstream. This is a unique, one of few unique properties, and this is why we're asking for that. The increase of the terrace, obviously, it is also a special exception that it is in the town code that we are able to request as well. And obviously, we've gone through the through DEP to try to get their input and making sure that that they don't see any problem with that. And obviously, they're giving us approval based on that. I think that summarizes my
presentation.
yes.
Thanks, Carlos. Can we open it to the board, please, for any questions?
You can attest to all these figures.
So yes, we did have a structure that exceeded the maximum FAR as well, with some uncovered, unenclosed areas. Carlos and I were banging our heads against the wall, so we just sent it out to our planner and said, these are the figures that we agreed to. What is the number? And it's the number that they provided.
Okay.
So our West Palm consultant. Wait.
Correct,
Yes.
And in the lanai itself, we mentioned last time it's just a kitchen area. There's an open kitchen area there. Is that correct?
Say that
A
again.
kitchen area for cooking and
No,
barbecue?
no more.
that's
We're not asking for any of that. No.
Good. Okay.
No, sir.
Because I know that was discussed
No.
at the last
No.
meeting.
Brand new application.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, under the lanai.
Yeah.
Under the lanai, there's a summer kitchen.
Yeah. Okay. Just confirming that. If there any more questions from the board, at which point I'll open it to the public.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to comment? Mr. Gammon. And we do have, what we're going to do is move things along. We're going to make it a 3-minute, getting your points on 3 minutes. And just so everybody's here, Mr. Gammon was here last time and he had some points to discuss. And we said, wait until this application comes in. So Mr. Gammon.
Good morning. Excuse me. My name is James Gammon. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you again. As you know, I live next door to 3813 and 3851, and I'm here today representing my wife and myself. I'm here today to voice opposition to the seaward lanai extension, the reduction of rear setbacks, the seaward extension of the pool patio deck, I think it was called the terrace, the addition of a 5-foot wide grassy strip, and the addition of a dry stack retaining wall seaward of the original coastal construction control line. What you saw on the slide, the line that was dashed in red, that was the original construction control line. It is now used as the rear setback control line. That was established in 1978. The construction control line has now moved a couple hundred feet, I guess, to the west. And you'll see that in the footages that I mentioned. All of these proposed changes that I've mentioned exceed the limitations that were set forth in the originally approved Florida Department of Environmental Protection permit for the construction of this project. I urge you to hold this project to those original DEP permit requirements. You'll find the permit requirements highlighted on the first packet, first item in your packet. So why are we so concerned? Simply this, because allowing construction to expand seaward and building a vertical retaining wall requires the removal of existing protective dune vegetation. Removing the dune vegetation increases the potential for erosion, not only in front of 3813, but also in front of 3851, where we live. I should note that our dune slopes down into the dune fronting 3813. Talk about that a little bit later when I get to the wall and the concerns with the wall.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Gammon, but we are on a time limit here. There's a 3-minute time limit on our presentation. So can you, I want you to make all your points, but we have to get them in.
Right, I understand. Okay. Conditions changed in November 2022 when Hurricane Nicole washed away average of 10 feet of the vegetated dune in front of 3813. That means with changed conditions, DEP is going to require a resurvey and a reevaluation of this situation. With the combination of the removal of dune to move structures seaward and also the removal of dune by Hurricane Nicole, approximately 30% of the original dune has been removed. This situation needs to be reevaluated by the DEP Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection. I should point out that the beach fronting 3813 and 3851 is already in very poor condition. In June 22, less than a year ago, the DEP Office of Resilience and Coastal Protection listed this beach as critically eroded. We must not allow anything that will further degrade the beach and the vegetated dunes along it, which are critical to the protection of oceanfront buildings.
We're at 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Mr. Gammon. I've got 3 minutes 40.
Right, I
A
understand.
bit of latitude was given there.
So in summation, I would urge you to hold this project to the original limitations set forth in the permit that was approved by DEP.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Gammon.
very much.
Thank you. Who else? Would anyone else wish to speak?
Hello. I'm Margot Stahl,
Take
Gammon.
your time. Take your time.
I'm Margot Stahl Gammon, Jim Gammon's wife.
Okay.
He's a Purdue graduate engineer. I am a biologist. I was a endangered species coordinator for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Hawaii, and also worked for the Army Corps of Engineers on local construction projects at the shoreline. And so our biggest concern is the environment. It's true, we are neighbors. When they bought their property, their home, our elephant building was there. They knew what they were buying, and they cannot utilize the fact that we built in 1960s are a little further looking out than they are as an excuse for why they can violate the coastal construction control line. Because the coastal construction control line, which my husband can tell you more about, it follows the curvature of the beach, of the shoreline. And so it's not a straight line. And so just because it looks like we're out there, we were built way before environmental issues were at the forefront. I wanted to let you know that our dune was recreated originally when my parents bought this to entice me back from Hawaii, our condo on next door. We had a lot of acreage, area, I should say, of grassy dune, a grassy area with a wall in front. We sacrificed that in order to create a more natural environment for turtles and other wildlife. And we were so successful that we have survived major storms and hurricanes because of this natural dune. And I want them to appreciate that we're helping them to save some of their property by not letting them go so far out and take out some of this vegetation that could eventually impact them as well. Right now, we have 12 turtle crawls. Our dune is so fabulous, the turtles appreciate it. And we have 12 turtle crawls, 8 of which have laid eggs right in front of our condo and partly in front of their home. And it is a testament to the need to protect our very critically eroded beach and the beautiful native vegetation that we have. And so I urge you to hold them to their original. They've been a moving target, and they have not been as forthcoming with what their plans are. We had to keep looking for ourselves as to what they were proposing. It was only at the last minute when they were required because of you all and these exceptions where we were notified, so officially. So I want to extend my appreciation to the service that you all provide to our community, and I'm appreciative of people who volunteer. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Gammon.
I do have a letter to be written.
Please.
On April 20th, 2023, our board of directors and interested concerned unit owners met with Mr. Dov Seidman, who also owns a unit in our building, to discuss his plans for a major renovation of his property next door, 3813 North Ocean. Only one resident expressed concerns regarding the renovation, and those concerns were addressed at the meeting to mutual agreement. Mr. Seidman has assured us that he will, in good faith, do everything he can to reduce any impact on our South Side building residents. The Gulfstream Shores Board and nearly all the community are 100% in favor of his proposed plans. We support his request to the ARPB and ask that you grant him approval for his request of the 4 special exceptions as submitted by his architect and as listed on the notice of application for development approval. Thank you for your consideration and time. Sincerely, Paul James LaChance, President of the Gulfstream Shores Owners Association.
Thank you, Renee. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the points that were made just now?
Sure, absolutely. We do understand their concerns. Obviously, this is the reason that we had gone through extensive conversations with DEP to make sure that DEP obviously will have, if they do have any concerns, for them to let us know about those. So we've done that. We've worked with DEP, and obviously DEP has not seen any problems at all. As you've seen, we have letters of approval from DEP on all these items that we're presenting.
Thank you. You probably all read the notes, but Trey, am I correct here in our pack where it said section 70-75 special exception setbacks, item G? We are considering this on the code of the town, but item G states final approval from the Florida Department of Environment Protection shall be required prior to the issuance of a building permit for any structure receiving special exception. So as far as I see, well, not I see, but is my understanding correct that if we apply the code as we're doing here, at the end of the day, the DEP will take the final application and consider that, which addresses the points there. Is that correct?
That's right. So the applicant will have to update whatever they're seeking and get approval from the DEP prior to us issuing a building permit for the work that's being applied for today.
Yeah, and they're seen as the custodians of basically the environment. So that was, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that point.
It looks like we received the letter.
Yep.
Okay, I see it right here. Okay, fine. I'm reading
Sorry,
those.
sorry, Bob.
Okay, but it clearly says in the letter.
Yeah, they approve.
We approve.
Yeah. Okay. Any more comments from the board?
Yeah.
In that case? Yeah, basically not basic. Sorry. Can we speak at the podium? Sorry, because we have to have it on record, please.
Sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing, so I wasn't sure I heard
No
correctly.
problem.
They did receive a letter from DEP, but we believe that changes were made after that. And so we wanted to know whether you have received anything more recent that addresses their proposed variance request.
So that's your question. Thank you.
So this project is kind of evolving over time, given the zoning code that you're applying. To the extent that there is an inconsistency between a letter from the DEP giving approval, that would need to be amended by the applicant through a submission to the DEP. before we issue a building permit. So if the DEP does not approve of this project, they will not receive a building permit. This is really just a zoning question, and within the special exception criteria, it does specifically call out DEP approval for this particular project. So there is the acknowledgement that that is important, and that is a step that they would need to take.
Does that help your question?
With regard to the comment, excuse me, on the letter, the original permit permitted distance for the extension of the lanai was about 152 feet. The engineer came in with a request to extend that from the distance from the new construction control line from 150 to somewhere around 163. And they submitted that to the DEP for an evaluation. The DEP came back and said, you're not going to get the 163. We're holding you to the originally permitted distance of 150, whatever it was. That was why I submitted that letter. That was in essence a rejection of the request to extend the lanai further towards the ocean.
So just as part of the special exception criteria, they would need to get DEP approval, right? Specifically called out in the special exception itself states, should the DEP require significant revisions to the plans approved by the town as part of the special exception, the applicant may be required to apply for and receive a plan amendment approval. So if the DEP does not accept these plans that we're approving, the applicant would need to come back and amend those to conform with whatever the DEP would permit, okay?
Right.
Are you able to submit this to them with a request that your decision to approve was based on their decision? Can you do it that way? Rather than sending it as you have approved it, can you send it to them saying you await their decision prior to your approval?
You may.
They are absolutely right. If we could go to one of the slides, I would be happy to answer your concerns. Right here. So we were originally approved for with DEP, and I'll show you what the slide is. 152 with 8 inches. It is what we're not asking for that. We're like I said before, we're asking for less. So they approved us for 12-foot extension of the lanai. Due to the FAR with Gulfstream, we're not able to go up to 12 feet. We're only able to go 11.8. So we're asking for less than what the DEP approved us already for. That's what we're proposing today.
Well, if that's what you're proposing today, that's different than what was published on the agenda a week ago today, because the drawing that's on the agenda shows the extension of lanai at 163 feet.
Yeah, no, we're only asking for 11.8, and you can see that.
So
if there is a typo, on that you could definitely check that. We'll assure you that we'll comply with that.
I said last month that this project is like chasing a moving target.
Can I, sorry, gentlemen, can I interject at this point because we have to move forward? We understand your concerns, I think it's been made clear that whatever we approve today or not approve, but let's say we approve it, then it has to be the DEP will get their say.
Correct.
And as Trey has just said, should they deem that there are significant changes to what they've previously seen and their role of arbitrator to protect the environment, they will request more work from you.
As far as the DEP is concerned, one of the significant changes is the erosion by Hurricane Nicole. The site is not the same as it was when the permits
And I'm
were
sure
issued.
they'll take that into consideration because they're subject matter experts on this one. Okay, so thank you. If there aren't any more questions from the public or the board, could I ask for some motions, please?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a special exception to reduce the rear setback for the lanai and pool from 25 to 10 feet.
I'll second that.
Renee?
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power, Yes. Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a special exception to exceed the maximum permitted FAR by 278 square feet.
I'll second that.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a special exception to place a patio deck and dry stack retaining wall east of the CCCL.
I'll second that.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. Thank you for the application.
You got one more.
Got
Oh,
one
sorry,
more.
there's one more. Yes,
One
sorry, on
more.
my paper. Sorry. Yep. I jumped ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a level 3 architectural site plan review to permit a lanai extension totaling 264 square feet to the existing 2-story single-family residence, enlarge the pool and extend the patio deck.
I'll second that.
Mr. Roach,
Wasn't that the footage that was changed to 250?
So,
Yeah.
right, so they're adding a smaller amount than the special exception because they
Okay, but
already
that has-
exceed. The
that
the
has-
264 for the level 3 is the correct figure, yes, sir.
Yes.
Mrs. Power, Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. And at that point, thank you. And thank you for your input.
Thank you all. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. And now we move on to the item which was number 1 on our agenda. Mark, you're on.
Keep you on line here. Keep you on line.
I didn't turn the page on. Oh, dear. That's why I was smiling. I didn't turn the page on.
Hey, good morning. Mark Marsh, architect, Bridges Marsh and Associates. I'm here with Harvey Oya, who's going to be the counsel for the Gulfstream Golf Club, and Hollis Tidwell, who's our design architect. He's here just to help me through this because I'm a little we're here on behalf of the Gulfstream Golf Club Board and membership to request the approval of the proposed building modifications for a rear setback variance and modifications to the existing clubhouse. Last year, I was invited by the then president, Mr. Robert Clay, to evaluate the possible expansions to the club and remodeling options. I think we're selected because of our knowledge with landmarking, which in effect the golf club is a historical building, and doing Meisner and other projects, mainly in Palm Beach. In fact, the golf club here, I would say, is one of Meisner's most well-done projects in Palm Beach County. Since that initial meeting, we have had, and the club established a sub-building development committee formed by Mr. Clay, Mr. Roth, and the current club manager, Mr. Bauer, who's actually here today, Mr. Kevin Bauer. And also we engaged Campbell Interiors to be part of the team to really study not only aesthetics and the architecture, but obviously to work closely with the interior. So the goals of what we're asking for today is basically the club is desiring to create a more informal or casual use of some of the areas in the existing club which are not either used because they're just exposed to the elements or they're just poorly arranged currently by the present layouts that they have at the club. Our goal from the architectural standpoint, which I'll show you shortly, is to obviously complement the formality of the club. It has a very strong history of, being very formal and being one of the premier clubs in this area. And I think we want to recognize and preserve those values, but yet create this new environment for the club membership to enjoy. So with that, I'd like to go through This is a overall survey of the club property, the area just, this is the club east of A1A towards the ocean. And you can see that the club itself is located to the north end of the property, this parcel of the property. And it sets back the 18th green, which is 18th hole, which is on the south side. And then on the north side, the building is separated from adjacent property by about 170 feet. To the south, it's in excess of 1,000 feet, and it would take a McEnroe or a DeChambeau drive to get to the next property. If we move on, this is a close-up of the club survey, and unfortunately, it doesn't show quite clearly here, but this is the coastal control line, which was discussed in the previous application, the old coastal construction line. This is a new one. And this property, like most of Gulfstream, is blessed with having a seawall bulkhead just about the whole length of it. Interesting, the property that was just discussed, where Jap Rock turns, is where there is no bulkhead. Everything south, and it's one of the true treasures this town has. This is a site plan blowing it up, and you'll see what we're concentrating on here is that southeast and south area of the existing club. The three primary areas that is the southeast, the south, and then a front entry portico, which I'll come back to shortly. But the request is to impede or extend into the current required setback, which was established by the old CCC L line, as was discussed earlier. Originally, the town prior to 2000 used the bulkhead line as their setback for the rear setback, which is almost 50 feet from the building edge, the existing building edge. Harvey will get into this more later with the justifications. But we are asking and requesting to encroach 14 feet from the current easterly face of the clubhouse. The other expansion or proposed extensions have no variance requests. This is the only area that we're asking for the variance. Just for those who are not familiar with the club, these are bird's eye aerial views. The first top left one is showing the club from the southwest angle. The one to the right is a due south, which we'll focus on shortly. And the last one is, again, more of a distant southwest view. The one in the bottom right-hand corner is an overhead shot of the area we're discussing. And you can see highlighted the 14 feet extension from the original terrace, which we'll get into detail later. And this is the extension that we're requesting. 14 feet. The bulkhead with that extension will still be 35 feet. And as I said, it's almost 50 feet to the existing building. Next, please. Can this be moved up? Thank you. So the areas that we're going to discuss today and we'll be presenting is this terrace which exists. We want to extend out to the east, and this temporary ocean terrace patio, which has become very popular, and then just a minor thing on the porte cochere. Next one. Oops. One too far. Okay. All right, sorry. This is the west-facing area of the south part of the building, where this kind of awning canopy is trying to act as a porte cochere or arrival area of valets and the members that use that main stair to the left there to go to the club, second floor. So those are the areas we're going to discuss. So this photograph illustrates what we are trying to improve on. This is the existing southeast terrace on the club. And for obvious reasons, it gets very no use or little use because of the exposure. And it's an unfortunate situation because, as you can see, I think it has the best view from the clubhouse, looking south to the 18th hole and looking southeast and east to the ocean. And the club is not able to use this for any function, and hence that's why we were called in to evaluate and see what we could create to improve that situation. This is the due east, looking back at that terrace. There is a boardroom below, which is primarily, as it calls, it's used for meetings. And again, you're using some very valuable real estate that have wonderful views. And I should say you're, not able to use these views. So that gives you kind of a feel for next. So in trying to describe this in plan view, the plan on the left is the lower area of the existing club, and the one on the right is what we're proposing. I'll just go over the lower area quickly. Currently, you would arrive to what is now a lounge, more casual area of the club. The problem is it's a very dark area. It has a low ceiling height. It has a bar that's on the north side. It's not a very inviting, area to congregate or have membership enjoy. And the club has been fighting this problem and making do. They have improved it by creating this outdoor terrace, which has that awning above it, to make it more informal. And this is really the seed of what we're trying to do here, is to improve the amenities that exist now, but improve on them and get better functions, because Mr. Bauer will tell you to service this area and get people to enjoy the atmosphere is very difficult. So our proposal is this is the boardroom, by the way, is to expand the area that's in this kind of beige color, and that would incorporate the 14 feet extension that we're requesting. It would improve this lounge area into a more enjoyable bar. Those of you who know the little club, that's kind of the atmosphere that's trying to be achieved here. So it's more casual. We'll put a hard roof over where the awning is currently, and again expand that patio because it's a very popular area for pre-golf or after golf members getting together. Next slide, please. This is the current roof or second floor. This is that terrace I just showed you. This is, I think, one of the nicer rooms in the club. It's called Ocean Room. And we'll come into some real history when Harvey makes his presentation on the evolution of that room. This is that awning with the patio above. And again, the club is blessed by having this wonderful living room and this very nice main dining room. Again, that's a formality. This area here has been used currently to house a lot of activities, rotating activities. But the desire now is, as you'll see on our proposal, is to expand this into what is called the East Terrace dining area, or it can be multi-use area, to leave the ocean room where it is create a terrace off the ocean room. So the terrace that was here that couldn't be used because of the wind. This is more just of a waiting terrace to get into the ocean room. We have to create a second means of egress, and we've developed a staircase that again, members can come from the parking lot and come up to functions here without having to go through the whole formal club area. And I think that's where most clubs are leaning now, is to not fight formality, but at least complement the formality with a more casual experience. The porte cochere is, there is nothing, there's an awning there. That will have a roof on it, and I'll show you that later. And there will be some, sorry, go back. There will be some help for, again, those of you who know the club, the kitchen is on this floor, the service downstairs is a very difficult task. So we're trying to improve the efficiency as we go along here. And the other slide is, again, the roof plan. This is existing awning and the awning of the porte cochere and the open terrace. Now these will all be roofed except for the new terrace, which is a means to get to some of these spaces that we're creating. These are the elevations. Renee? Thank you. The lower elevation is what exists now. You can see the open terrace there, the ocean room beyond the main body of the main clubhouse. What we're proposing to do is now build over that terrace area, extend to the east. But again, we're very sympathetic to the Meisner style. We want to replicate it and at least not try to challenge it, because again, there is such a nice rhythm to what the fenestration is of the club. And create, you know, instead of that open terrace, you now have usable area that has excellent visibility to the ocean. And then the covered ocean terrace patio will be up to the back there, which doesn't exist. It exists partially as an awning with metal posts at the moment. Next one, please. This is the south elevation. This is how it looks currently. Again, that's the open terrace. This is a shear wall basically, and then the awning sticks out here. What we're proposing here is to create this new two-story element on the southeast. Again, respecting and mimicking the Meisner style so that there's no obvious, it looks as Meisner was known to do. He added to his projects constantly. So we're taking that directive and trying to improve the facility. And we've got now the covered, which has a hip roof, the covered ocean terrace patio, and the porte cochere as a hard roof structure. Continue. This is the existing west or main frontage to A1A. Again, this is how it exists. We didn't put the awning on because we see that as a temporary structure. And then we'll have a porte cochere here. It would have a little sense of entry through this little tower element, because again, as I mentioned earlier, most of the membership use that to access the second floor. One more. So these are the renderings of what we're proposing. Let's start on the upper left. That's now the porte cochere element. That's now a permanent structure rather than a temporary structure. And then on the upper right, you will see this is the existing building. That's the ocean room, and that's our new east terrace dining area. The staircase going up again, mimicking what happens with the balustrades of the main entry at the front of the west part of the club. The covered patio, ocean terrace is a hard roof, And this is a better view of it. You can start to see this is where we're expanding. We're expanding about this much of the building into the setback. And then this is a terrace above the roof, and then patio, which I think, and by the way, we're not expanding or affecting the 18th hole, which is right adjacent to this. We're not encroaching on it at all. So the idea, and we have done one thing which you can slightly see here, is that we were respective of that main east wing of the existing house, club, and we're now this element here actually sets back so that you can define what was the original and what's new. That's kind of a trick we use to preserve some historical elements. So I think there is minor landscaping proposed. The existing material will be reused. It's very modest because the whole effect of the club is to have that wonderful lawn that comes off the 18th green. And I think so it's a very simple, only the walkway, as I mentioned earlier, the palms, coconuts are going to stay because again, that's a very much a signature item for the club. And I think that's, so what I'd like to do now is have Harvey come up and present the variance request.
Thank you, Mark.
Before I forget, this is a segue. I stole a bit of his. Harvey is, most of you might know Harvey is well known as an attorney, but more importantly as a historian through Palm Beach County. And he shared with us the other day something that's, I think is a nice tidbit, that Briny Breezes used to be a pasture or ranch cattle that were brought in from the west in the winter time, and or in the summertime, sorry, because of the mosquitoes out west. And that Briny Breezes, as we know it today, was actually an open ranch for cattle and herds. So,
Good way to get an ag exemption on the property taxes, isn't it? So good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Harvey Oyer with the law firm of Schatz & Bowen. It's a pleasure and honor to be before you this morning on behalf of the Gulfstream Golf Club, which is one of the most iconic, historically important buildings in the county and certainly in your community. And as a matter of fact, it predates the existence of the town of Gulfstream. The town of Gulfstream was built around the club. And in fact, I think the club served as the original de facto town hall until a town hall could be constructed. So truly the most important building in the community. And it presents a unique set of circumstances because it obviously predates the code and the existence of the town. And as you know, historic buildings will eventually be mothballed and not used if they are not adaptively reused. And so our goal here is to take a building that is now a century old and help it live into its next century and be viable and usable for its users while simultaneously preserving the historic character. So your town has no historical landmarking, but if there's ever a building that warrants being treated as a historic building, it would be this one. And that's what the board membership is attempting to do, which is why you see such sensitive additions and expansion proposed by Mark. I thought this would be interesting to put up because one of the common questions I get, I've worked on a lot of historic buildings and Meisner buildings, is this is sacrosanct, sacred cow, you may not touch it. That's not true. In his day, Meisner frequently changed his buildings to adapt to the needs of his client, the changing needs of the community. And as maybe the very best example, if we can go back to that, Hollis, this is the Gulfstream Golf Club. The original plan had this as an outdoor terrace. So that's the 1923 original design. Notice the balustrades here. And now if we can skip forward, that was an outdoor terrace. That's the original plan dated in 23. And while it was literally under construction, Meisner probably realized what Mark and the club have realized, that while that's a beautiful view, you're windswept on the breezes coming in from the Atlantic, and it makes it largely unusable. So during construction, he changed his own plan to put a roof on it. Now it was open air, but he put a roof on it thinking that would solve the problem. Next slide, please. And then 4 short years later in 1929, that was not working at all. So they enclosed it. So what we know today is that enclosed area of the southeast corner was changed 3 times by Meisner himself to adapt to the needs of the club. And that's sort of where we find ourselves. So I thought it would be instructive. By the way, my grandfather was a builder for Meisner. So I've lived in Meisner houses. He built, might have even worked on this one, I'm not sure. So very familiar with the Meisner design and frequent adaptations to support his client needs. Okay, I don't know what you have next. Why don't we go into the variance? I think that's probably the issue for this morning.
Yeah, and just
more
to
so than
qualify it for everybody here as well, Harvey, there are 8 clear criteria that have to be met in order to approve a variance. They all have to be met, just so everybody knows. Sorry to interject, but so
thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is correct. So there are 8 criteria in your town code that need to be met before a granting of a variance. And all of those we have outlined in a justification statement previously submitted to you. Unless you want to go through the pain of me reading through all that, I won't do that. It's already part of the record. I'd just like to hit the highlights, if I may, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I'd like to point out that in our application, our variance request was for 7.84 feet. And you'll notice that Mark referred to 14 feet.
Yeah,
and that is because, and I would like to correct the record, we are seeking 14 feet. The original design was 7.84. And when Bridges and Marsh went back and looked at the ADA compliance between tables and walls and tables, they needed to add 14 feet. So the request is for 14 feet, despite references in the justification statement at 7.84.
Or just less than 8 feet. It references that figure a lot.
Yeah, or less than 8 feet, but for the record,
But
it's
it's
14 feet. Yes, and again, that was necessitated by going back and applying the ADA standards for movement of people between doorways, walls, and tables. But it's really whether.
In between you writing this?
Yes, and the justification was done.
Happened very recently, I presume.
Several weeks ago is when I wrote this.
Okay.
And the plan changed in the interim.
Mhm.
But I think the situation is the same. As you know, the public policy reason for having setbacks is to protect your neighbor from any adverse impacts that might be created by your project. And in this unique circumstance, our neighbor that we are protecting is the west end of Grand Bahama Island, 80 miles to the east. So there is no impact to the nearest neighbor. So it certainly fulfills the public policy purpose. Now, you may question, couldn't you build this addition on one of the other 3 sides? We could, but that would adversely affect the public on one of those 3 sides, which is what we're trying to avoid. In addition, this is the money shot view. This is the best view in the club, that southeast view. So that is why it's being put where it is. We are dealing with a building that we're going to treat as a historic building for the good of the public, even though we're not legally required to. If we are to allow this building to adaptively be reused to comparable great clubs in America, and I'm sure you're all members of other clubs that have undergone the same evolution in recent years, where you want to create, for example, in this case, a more informal space at the 19th hole, something that's a little bit more casual. Every club is undergoing this transition, and we're trying to do it as least invasively as possible, where you do not see any radical design change, where no neighbor is impacted by it. And I want to compliment Mark and Hollis. They've, as always, done an outstanding job, as they have on many historic buildings in our community, of making it work for their client while preserving the historical integrity of the building. So we don't have the benefit of demolishing the building and starting over, which limits our ability where we can perform this exercise. And this is the least invasive and least impactful to our neighbors. And it cannot be accomplished without a variance because we cannot fill that in, meet the ADA requirements, meet the club requirements without going into the rear setback. And incidentally, had a code or a town or a rear setback existed at the time, I imagine Mr. Meisner would have complied with it and moved the building a few feet further west. We also have the issue that Mark referenced that we keep changing the reference point for the rear setback. You know, we've now moved the coastal construction control line inland 3 times in history. And I imagine if we come back 25 years from now, it'll be, you know, somewhere on the west side of A1A. That's the reality of global warming and sea level rise. I think one of the things that if I were in your shoes, I would be concerned about is, are we setting a precedent that the town does not want to live with if you're considering granting this variance? And I want to point out, again, the unique nature of this building, this property, but also this zoning district. This is not a residential zoning district. It is an outdoor recreational zoning district. We're one of only 3 properties in the entire town that are located here. You would not be, if you are so inclined to grant the variance, you would not be creating a precedent that you wouldn't want to live with as applied to 95% of the remainder of your town. I also want to compliment my client that they're willing to go to this sort of expense, which is a lot more expensive to do it this way, to keep their club viable for the next generation of club members. And they have undertaken an extraordinary amount of expense and detail to find a way to accomplish their goal without putting a large addition on the south side where it could legally go and I would not be standing in front of you. But that would affect the public, or they could put it on the west side or the north side, all of which could be legally done without a variance, but would not be in the best interest of the town, the folks utilizing A1A, the neighbors to the north and south. Incidentally, we have the support of our nearest neighbors, which you should have in your record. So I'm not aware of any opposition to this. I think it is, having worked on a number of these projects, a very tasteful, sensitive, least invasive way of accomplishing the objective. And if we are unable to find a way to make the club usable and viable in the next generation, I can point to examples of clubs that have simply gone away because of the inability to adaptively reuse a historic building. And of all the Meisner buildings in our community, and I've worked on a number of them, this one is in pretty pristine condition. And you're fortunate that it is, because most have been altered quite a bit, either by Meisner himself or subsequent architects. And he was a master at building clubs. His first commission in Florida was the Everglades Club. He also did one called the Embassy Club in Palm Beach that I've worked on multiple times. It's now part of the Society of the Four Arts. And in fact, we're proposing changes to that, to the town of Palm Beach again this summer. The Boynton Women's Club, which I've worked on, the Boca Raton Hotel and Club, which has been worked on. All of these have been worked on. You have a pretty pristine example of a Meisner club. And Mark's proposal, I think, is an appropriate incision into it.
Thank you.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll stop talking. I'm delighted to try to answer any questions. If you'd like me to go through the criteria individually,
I think
that may not be a good use of your time.
Yeah, I think we've all had a chance to review how the 8 points are addressed. So at this point, could I ask the board for their comments in terms of what's being presented, please?
I'm a little confused about the, Mark was talking about the pristine view from the existing patio, which granted is windy, and that this is going to be somehow enhanced by enclosing the building and extending it. I don't see that.
So the existing terrace, while it looks good, and I'll let Mark address the design part, I'm not an architect, it's almost entirely unusable to the club. This has large windows and fenestration,
Yeah,
so
I mean, I'm very familiar with the
you
club.
preserve the view, but make it a usable space. Mark, I don't know if you want to state that more articulately than I did.
I think you've covered it. It's not, in its present state, it's really not a functional space. And it's such a valuable asset from a viewing and potential use. That's what's generated this proposal today, is to, you can be able to now, under what we're proposing here, enjoy that room for dining, for bridge, for whatever activity the club members desire. And
But could that porch not be configured such that it would be a usable space by putting up plexiglass or glass partitions to block the wind that?
we actually, that was one of our first approaches, because again, when you're dealing with historical buildings, there are two thoughts that come to mind. One is you actually create something that's very contradictory to the existing historical element, or you complement it. We're on the side of complementing. We looked at doing glass kind of conservatory type elements, but we threw that out quite quickly because, again, it was going to become almost, I hate to use the word, a scar on this beautiful building. And we looked at retractables. We worked with Mr. Bauer and looked at retractable elements, and that from a maintenance, being on the ocean, it just wasn't practical.
And so in order to get the view that that is the rationale, I presume, for this project, you're putting the patio out over the present dining area, luncheon dining area?
No, it's actually, yes, it's partly over the bar area or the lounge area below, and
also that little alcove.
right. And it's a terrace serving two purposes. One, as a means of egress for life safety. Two, it could be used as a pre-function gathering if somebody comes and they don't want to go through the main area of the club. They can afford this entry, have a drink, have whatever they wish.
Well,
But it's not a sitting terrace compared to what they tried to do, and Meisner, was trying to do by his early sketches drawings that Harvey presented. He started as an open terrace, it failed, put a roof on it, it failed, he enclosed it, and now, as I said earlier, it's one of the loveliest rooms in the club, that ocean room. So
yeah,
we're kind of leapfrogging that a little bit and trying to replicate.
So you want to extend out the ocean room and increase the size of the downstairs former boardroom, which is now a dining room on Sundays, and et cetera.
Yes.
And as for the entry from, the outside entry, I was told by one of the board members that that's mandatory because of the fire code. And
that's what I just said.
And I was also told that, that it was something that they would have preferred not to do. Is that correct?
Not a matter of preference. I think it's life safety, as I said earlier, as a means of egress. But it now affords, the club, as you know, has a lot of large spaces. So to respond to some of the activities that are more informal, this allows people to come into smaller areas, have more intimate gatherings, and not have to, circulate through the main clubhouse. That option's there. Obviously, entering the club on that staircase that I mentioned earlier is the traditional and the most common way to get in. But if people wanted to come and park and go to the new Ocean Terrace dining, they could come, stroll down the pathway and go up the staircase here and still go to the club without, having to.
But the club has a lot of traditions also, one of which is that a coat must be worn on the second floor. So if you're going to be entering from the outside staircase, that's going to require coats also, I presume.
That is still in discussion.
Okay.
It's just giving.
I've had, you hear what I'm saying. Also, I'm somewhat concerned about the extension out into the east. Granted, the Bahamas are our closest neighbor to the east, but
Well, the two,
variances is something that the town of Gulfstream is very opposed to.
correct, but as Harvey so well described, this is as neutral an area as possible on this property. And the fact that pre-2000, because I did a number of houses, in fact, both houses on north and south of this property I did, the setback in those days was to the bulkhead, 25 feet. We're still preserving that. We're going to be 35 feet from the bulkhead by this addition. So, the intent is still to create a buffer or a barrier, as this lady that was here was concerned about. But I think it has no impact on any public entity at all. It's a pure private.
Except that it, contradicts one of the town criteria. But I've asked enough questions. I'll let other people ask.
Just sort of along those lines. Did you look at just staying within the existing footprint and closing it in?
Yes, and the terrace is only 16 feet wide. It was from about here to that back wall. And it's not practical for any use. As I said, it's optimum space, but on its current state, it's unusable. So the first thing was to look at that. That's why Harvey corrected that thing, because we tried to look at that initially to do it, to not have the variance request. But from a practical interior use, it made no sense. It would have been a lot of expense to really replicate something that to be honest, they have downstairs currently. So it's the least invasive and least, it's the most neutral area in the site for this kind of, variance request.
Any other questions? Mark, sorry, Rob.
No, go ahead.
There's no doubt that the Gulfstream Golf Club is the custodian of a stunning property. What we're addressing here, and in terms of the precedent, we do take every single case on its own merits, right? So we're never very concerned about that because we take it on its own merits. We're here to apply the criteria for a variance to a challenging building. We all understand that, from especially Harvey, from the points you've made. Historic buildings, they're incumbent. That's the way it goes. However, there's a couple of things that strike me as, it was said here it encroaches a mere 8 feet. It's either dead or alive. It doesn't matter whether we already talked earlier on, it's 2 inches. It has to be to the code. And the point that I always struggle with, and this is my personal choice, is point 2. The special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. We've already heard that this is one of the options. You said you could go to the east, the west, the north, but also in the written proposal, the variance is necessary to protect the building. I can't see how it's necessary to protect. You're saying about future needs and demographics and the usage, but could you expand on how that?
Sure, and I apologize if I did not directly address that. So criteria number 2, which is what I think you're referencing, is the special conditions and circumstances. And obviously, this is not a vacant lot that we've purchased and we get to begin from scratch. We were, gifted this historic building, by Mr. Meisner. And so we have very limited ability to make changes to it. And as I hope we have described, we did not create the circumstance. We did not create the town. We didn't create the code. We didn't move the CCL 3 times. We didn't change the setback a few years ago. But nonetheless, we need this institution to survive into the next century. And the needs and demands are very different. So for example, Mark referenced all the other rooms are very large. Well, in 1923, after the end of the First World War in the Roaring 20s, people threw gigantic galas, every weekend, sometimes on weekdays. That's why Mrs. Post built Mar-a-Lago and the B&T. and they all had very large rooms. And you'll notice that those have been, subdivided and changed over time. So we have a very different need by club members today. They want to play golf, arrive at the 19th hole, have a drink, have some more casual food. Not everyone's dressing up in, white tie and tails and having an orchestra play. So, we don't want to go in and modify and bastardize those beautiful, large historic halls. That would be worse. So, we truly are presented with a special set of circumstances that we hired the best guy to make, the most tasteful changes. And that's what we're presenting. If we were a vacant lot and we were building a house from scratch, I would agree more so with your concerns.
Thank you.
I also say, I think, Malcolm, to your question, because this is a recreational district, it's unique. I think history will show that the RB districts and other residential districts in town, the variances have never, or haven't, I think a few have been granted. This is unique. This has unique characteristics. We're not adjacent to any residential, or what we're asking for is not adjacent to the residential zoning. It's the oceans are east neighbor, and the fact that we are in this unique district, we can't look at it as a residential zoning criteria. This is unique to this.
I would agree with that 100%. Everybody knows the town isn't into granting variances, and we've been stopping them and saying, no. But if there was ever a time to grant a variance, I think this is a unique asset. It's a unique building. It was built 100 years ago next year. And I think you've done a good job, Mark, with the architecture. I don't know as much about the interior design that Curtis was bringing up, but I assume that's probably more up to the club members, maybe even voting in a meeting, who knows, but.
Yeah, I mean, I am eligible to vote and actually required to vote, even because I'm not a board member of the club, but I am a member of the club. And Harvey was mentioning that in the olden days, they had large rooms and but are you not extending the ocean room and making it in fact larger than it presently is?
We are not touching the ocean room whatsoever.
Well, it goes up 2 floors.
No, that exists currently.
Am I?
Yeah, you're not.
reading the-
You're building it out.
Can you get back to the plan? The ocean room stays intact. This new ocean terrace dining area is a new addition on the east side of that room.
Interior. Here's your existing ocean
Yeah.
room right here.
Right,
And then they're proposing this brand new room. to be
yeah,
added
but
here.
this is 2 stories.
This is that second floor.
Oh,
This
so
is-
it's just going to make it into a separate
A separate
room rather than
Right.
As
okay.
opposed to
Right.
creating one, they could have.
Yeah.
It's only 35 feet long. If I
Yes.
Yeah.
34'8".
Whereas that big
Okay,
room
I-
is 150 feet or something.
Yeah. Oh, I misread that. Okay.
So I think the justification basically comes down to the uniqueness of the zoning and the fact that it has no impact on any resident or public entity. That's really where we are.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Well, I mean, any property of this nature can, it is not going to be impeding any other local neighbor. I can see that. However, I still hate approving variances, that's.
Yeah.
Just
I
one
don't
other
think we-
question.
Yeah.
Well,
Can I just ask Terry
Sorry.
a question? She might be able to address two
Oh,
thoughts.
sorry, I just curious as to why the DEP wouldn't review this as well due to its encroachment on the CCCL versus one that we listened to before.
The DP will be.
So that's a stipulation, same as we saw before.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We
Just
have to
wanted to
comply by all the
Sorry.
DEP criteria.
I just didn't see it in here.
And in fact, one of my consultants are sitting right here. So if you have any questions, please have yourself.
Okay, Harvey, sorry.
I just wanted to generally state the obvious. You have a variance procedure in your code for a reason, no matter how much we dislike them. There are communities that don't allow variances at all. So whoever your town fathers were that authored this code to begin with certainly envisaged a need in some circumstance that is your purview, your jurisdiction. So I'll just remind you of that. It wouldn't be in your code if it wasn't contemplated that someday, somewhere, some property, some project is going to need a variance. And I submit to you, this is the property, this is the project that justifies the granting of a variance.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public?
I have a letter to be
Yeah, thank
read
you.
into the record. As trustee of the Young Qualified Personal Residence Trust Number 3, the Meade Young Fogle Irrevocable Trust, and the Christopher H. Young Irrevocable Trust, owners of property located at 2411 North Ocean Boulevard, immediately adjacent and to the north of the Gulfstream Golf Club. I have no objection to the proposed request for variance on behalf of the Gulfstream Golf Club to enable the construction of dining facilities at the south end of the existing clubhouse based on drawings dated May 3rd, 2023, provided by M. Marsh, A1A with Bridges, Marsh and Associates. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach me at, he gives his number, sincerely, William T. Young, Jr.
So Mark, one of my questions is there an alternative in your eyes with your expertise and everything you've done in the town?
As I said, this committee, we sit on, or I sit on with the club board members and the manager. We have looked at this every which way. And again, it's living with some of the unfunctional elements, and the kitchen, as I mentioned earlier, is one of them.
Mhm.
And that's really why the current lounge that exists now is not as successful as it is.
So essentially, the internal functioning of the building is affecting your external solution.
Right. This is the only way to go.
Right. Okay, because that goes part way to my concerns of this isn't just choice, it is an
No.
operational issue as well.
And as I said, we started late last year
Mhm.
on this project. And it's been a lot of charrettes and workshop meetings,
Okay,
and to the board as well, the club board.
thanks, Mark.
Yeah, now, Mark, one other thing, the club has lived with a 300 membership number for as long as ever. And is part of the rationale for this because of an expansion of the,
No,
or
it's,
just because of
Mr. Baugh
overbooking
maybe will
dining?
explain, but there is no intention to increase the membership. This is to allow the current membership to have alternate amenities that they don't have right now. It's basically, sorry.
Yeah, I should have addressed that head on. There will be no intensification of the site, not one more member, not one more car on the road. I realize your town recently had an issue about numbers of folks. So I'm glad you asked that question. For the record, zero intensification. It is spending a lot of money to make the existing member experience, your experience, a better one.
In that case, can I ask for a motion, please? You know our options, but in terms of asking somebody on the board to make a motion, and we'll see what we can vote with.
I'm inclined to make that motion, so I'll go ahead. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of all of these. So, but the approval of a demolition permit to demolish the 2-story boardroom and terrace on the southeast corner of the existing building.
Second that.
Mr. Roach.
I hate to be the first one voting on this, but I will reluctantly vote yes.
Mrs. Power.
Yes.
Mr. Canfield.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
Mr. Doherty, for that second motion, the 17.16 figure should be 11 as amended during the presentation.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a variance from the provisions of section 66-261 to permit the construction of an additional 11 feet from the CCCL in lieu of 25 feet from the CCCL permitted by the town code.
Second that.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a level 3 architectural site plan review to permit the construction of a new 2-story east terrace, boardroom and pantry, a covered ocean terrace on the ground floor south, and a new covered portico share on the west side.
Second.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the
Appreciate
presentation.
Very good.
And
Thank you.
can I call for a 2-minute recess for breaks and things? And we'll come straight back and and then we're going to bio breaks, etc. Okay. Oops, let's do that.
Mr. Murphy, if you don't mind moving your microphone a little closer to you.
That works. You know that.
But everybody.
You're very welcome.
It's Charlie.
Okay. We have all the protagonists moving.
I think so. Yeah, Rob's here.
Rob's here. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. I'd like to call this morning's meeting back to order, please. And we're going to go straight on with the next application of Avenue au Soleil. And just a point here, we know this has come before us before, so if we can focus on the real points we asked you to address in the last.
Absolutely. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us here. I'm Dr. Russell Rosicki, architect, and we're here with a few more people who have some expertise to shed on some subject questions that arrived before us last time. If we can proceed to the proposed plot plan. So what we're proposing here is a 5-bedroom, 5.5 bathroom, just as a reminder, single story in the traditional West Indies style, concrete block truss roof. We've proposed our terracotta clay tile, flat tile roof, which we have here today. We have colors that are consistent with and approved by the town. For example, if you'd like to see them for both the primary facade, the field color, as well as the trim. And I'd just like to point out, plot plan wise, what has changed architecturally speaking would be that the driveway is now proposed to be Chicago brick rather than a larger paver, which was a travertine previously, which is more consistent with the traditional West Indies style in terms of it reading more traditional. If we could proceed to the floor plan. Architecturally, dimensionally, things have not changed by much with exception to pairing windows on the south facade in order to accommodate shutters. It ended up looking very busy, having a multitude of single windows rather than paired windows when shutters were added. If we can proceed to the elevations. What you're seeing here is the front elevations, now inclusive with the shutters, full height to pair up with the windows. It does give a better balance to the home. I personally think it looks architecturally better in this case, and I'm happy that comment was made last time. To the rear, we're seeing the rear elevation, the application of the shutters. And if we go to the east and west elevation, you'll see those paired windows now where the two windows are side by side with the shutters adjacent. Where a window cluster becomes 3 wide, the shutters actually have also been paired for a better traditional look as a folding shutter. If we can proceed to the renderings, please. So the front renderings, our previous depictions had some coloration issues with printing. Those have been corrected and distributed. Here we have the front perspective rendering viewing northwest of the home with this is our best example of a Chicago brick on here. It's not exact color rendering wise, but it's close.
It'll be set in concrete.
It'll be set in concrete, exactly, not over sand. And then you're seeing the perspective showing the new landscape. So we've detailed and adjusted the landscape. I'll let Cheyenne speak to that. We also have Mr. Joe Mignano present with more landscape expertise who we've assisted with this design. If we can go to the other renderings. This is the rear also showing the shutters applied. The color we've chosen for the shutters is slate gray. It's essentially almost like a charcoal kind of color, which goes very well contrast wise. I know that the town of Gulfstream appreciates contrast with shutters. And you can continue down. And then from here, I just want to show physically the samples again, and then I will pass off Cheyenne to describe the changes for landscape.
Thank you.
So the roof tile we're proposing is made by a very high quality roofing manufacturer, Ludowici. They're roughly 80 years in business. They make a very densely compacted clay tile or terracotta that's pressed. And you're looking at it here. This is the true reveal of the tile that you would see. It's smooth. It's kind of, it's not a satin sheen. It's more of a flat sheen and texture to it. And I think it'll look wonderful on this home, especially with relation to the shutter color of slate gray.
Is that the actual size of the?
It is.
It is, oh.
Yes, it is. This is the reveal size. So the actual tile size.
Is that big a one, yeah. Fine. Yeah, there you go.
The primary color is white opulence. And the trim color, which is a subtle offset, is dune white.
The trim. Help me.
Yeah, if we can go back to the architectural trim slide.
Oh, you're talking about the paint.
No, the trim around the windows.
Fair enough. Good, I'm good.
Okay.
I see it. Yep. Good. Window trim.
And then here's just an example of the full tile.
Okay, thank you.
And Cheyenne will discuss the landscape design and how we've made changes, and then we'll pass it off to Joe McNano to answer questions and talk about reasoning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi. Yes, as Russell mentioned, I'll briefly talk about the landscape, mainly what changed since last time.
Could you just put your name in for the record?
Yes, Cheyenne Sonnenberg. So last time we were here, we didn't have landscape elevations, and there was question about the heights of the plantings and the size. So we've now added the heights to the plant schedule, as long as developing the landscape elevations on the previous slides that show to scale all the plantings and give you a visual representation of what these landscaping will look like. We also briefly talked about the removal of the royal palms in the front. So we added 4 back to the front, flanking the driveway to help keep the height appearance of the current landscape and the shade that they offer. We briefly also talked about we were missing taller plantings and height variation, plants that offer shade, as last time we had mostly like shrubs. So we added a lot more palms with the additional Sylvester palms flanking the house and the Montgomery palms along the north side, as well as some yellow tabula trees on the south side. And I'll pass it off to Joe to walk you through the design concept and answer any questions that you have about the specific plantings.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, good morning, Joe McNano.
Good morning.
Starting from the front, yeah, we are removing the royal palms. They're in severe decline, but we're going back in with new royal palms, Florida Fancy. There's some black olive trees that are coming out in the front, and we're not going to miss those, but we're introducing a specimen gumbo limbo on this front right here. There's an existing Sylvester we're going to actually root prune and take back to the nursery, and it's going to be located here to the left side of the driveway. There's also some legustrum that are going to stay and that we're leaving those are existing. And we're going to do underplanting white odorata begonias. We've got Lucia border in the front, a triple bottle palm specimen, which is really cool looking on that far right corner here. Palm Beach purple bougainvillea specimen standard here, and some ground cover Asiatic jasmine, some imperial bromeliads, and just some nice layer in here. Pittosporum and sloppy painter crotons with Green Island ficus, border in this area. Down this right side, grouping of Montgomery palms and Robolini on this blank wall. Go back to the main plans. Again, no problem. More on the road here, I added these Montgomery palms as just another buffer. There's existing Areca palms, which are all getting removed, but I'm coming back in with Japanese blueberry standards, 12 to 14 foot, and then also adding a double row of 25 or 15 gallon calusias, which are going to plant out at 5 foot to start out. Going towards the back corner, I added a retaining wall here because of the elevation. There's an existing stables that are staying there. I brought in some more Montgomery palm singles along this back area. And then we also have some existing pretty foxtail palms that are staying that I can work into the landscape. We've got some copper leaf in here, just with the color, border of Green Island ficus, some more sloppy painters. And back in this little courtyard area, I've got just a guava tree, just real simple, and Podocarpus, 4 Podocarpus Pringles along the wall, and Mariah ground cover. Just real simple. Down this left side, I introduced 2 yellow tabebuia trees. And we also did some more standard Japanese blueberry trees down that side. I also took into consideration salt tolerance on the property. Everything on this property will do well as far as salt tolerance goes. The only thing would be like the odorata begonias, which is more of a glorified annual to begin with. Their shelf life's 1 to 3 years, so but everything else is pretty tried and true, pretty bulletproof on the property. Try to see what else I can pop in there. We did not St. Augustine, we did palmetto, which is like a hybrid of the St. Augustine. We steered away from the St. Augustine because of the sugarcane mosaic. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a fungus that they get, and a lot of the GL communities put in, millions of square foot of it, and they're having to pull it all out now. Put the palmetto back in, which is susceptible, it does not get the disease. So that's where we're going with the palmetto. Most people wouldn't know the difference. It just has a little smaller blade to it. But other than that, I mean, it's less susceptible to fungus, and it's more it's salt tolerant, and also takes less water. So,
You had zoysia in there before, right?
I did have zoysia, and they didn't want to do the zoysia. I do
Happy to
push
see
the
the
zoysia
change.
quite a bit. I like the Empire zoysia. I think it's pretty, but they wanted to stay with the St. Augustine.
Can we just concentrate on the north
Sure.
border?
Those Montgomery
Out
palms,
here,
Yeah, you've got a water line under there, haven't you?
we have a water line. Those are going to have to come
Yeah,
out.
Okay, no problem. I can mix those.
We would prefer not to introduce something when it's not there already over a water line.
That's fine. I can eliminate them. We've got enough here going on,
Yeah, it's shown in the,
so
okay.
I can take those out. I've added a lot more palms.
Okay. Any
I've got
questions from the
one
board?
sort of unrelated question.
Right.
I noticed that you have a big gumbo limbo in the front of the house.
Right here.
Yeah, and gumbo limbos, at least the ones on my property,
Right.
end up shedding all their leaves during the winter months. And they look great now, but they're
They
pretty
do go
bare.
through that season change.
Yeah, and I was wondering why you,
I was just going with something that was native and just gonna be a selected piece with a really cool character trunk that's gonna be something that we're gonna find,
yeah, their choice, your
Yeah.
choice.
That was the reason behind that piece there. And when it's lit up at night, even when there's no leaves on it, it looks pretty cool just with the character and the trunk line.
Right.
So,
Terry? No? Questions from
yes.
the public? Can you come up to the podium, please, and give your name?
Good morning. My name is Miguel Newman, and I'm the neighbor just behind the property we're looking at here. So from here
To the south.
to the side, to the south. In regards to the landscaping, it seems to be very beautiful. But I'm concerned with two things. The last time I was here, I heard that the whole landscape will be elevated in some degree, and the previous owner already had that refilled with sand for about 3 inches. As a result of that, the rain that falls onto that lot drains into mine, which is worrisome regarding the amount of new roof that is added to the house, and that will avoid the drainage of that water into the garden of that house. So I would like to know what sort of drainage will be added to this project in order that I don't get the water that I don't need. So that's the question. I hope these gentlemen have an answer for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And yes, Mr. Chairman, the infamous FEMA rules will apply here, so
Yep.
they will have to build at a higher finished floor elevation.
So,
As far as the drainage goes, I mean, there's a lot we can do. I mean, we can definitely divert water. There's plenty of property to divert water here with drains and doing some French drains and moving water from the south area where the gentleman is concerned with and divert it and getting it out towards the front.
yeah, I think it's the other way, actually. I think that's the norm.
Towards the south
Yeah.
property, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Down here.
Okay.
So we can definitely divert water from here. Obviously, it's all pitching towards the road, so we can actually drop some drains in and get it out to the front. I mean, that would be my.
I mean, you just,
that would be my game plan.
you can look in our code book. I mean, we do
Right.
have retention codes
Right,
in the code book.
okay.
I mean, primarily in the form of swales.
Sure, in order to fulfill the
Outside
natural
swales.
swale that they're gonna create at the final grade in order to do.
At the road.
This will be all swaled here and everything will be working its way out to the front.
Right, you just need to meet the
Correct.
code and,
Okay.
and show that on your plans.
Okay, no problem.
Greg,
Yes,
isn't
sir.
there a rule over in Place de Soleil as well as here in the core that you have to retain 2 inches per hour?
Yes,
of water?
that's defined in the code
Yeah.
book, and they would just need to follow
And,
that. And you're right, it's.
I mean, sometimes they have to put in a barrier along the side of a property, a plastic barrier to hold that water.
If that's what you find, if you find that that's what is going to be needed,
Right.
then that's what you'll need to do.
Okay.
Typically, it's done with on-site swales.
Okay.
So when I walk that side afterwards, I need to see swales that are identified on the set of plans.
Well, but they're not on these plans.
Well, they need to put them on.
Well, then are we going to approve something?
Well, that's what I was going
I
to,
don't see any symbols here. I mean, is this?
so in terms of what's
I mean,
presented to us today,
I get trusting people or whatever, but normally we have this
I mean, this is a level 3. It's going to go
to the town commission.
to the
yeah.
commission, and we have in the past said on our motions, there's a condition that certain codes have to be addressed, as in if this is approved.
I
that-
did just tell Dr. Wasicki too that those trees right there
Yeah.
that we just spoke about needed to come off before it
Yeah.
went to the
So,
commission.
and we can make these, we've done it before where we make conditions, but they have to be addressed. Because our two major concerns which have come out, which are the drainage and the trees.
Right.
Yeah, I think you can make your recommendation with those conditions. So,
Yeah, we're good with that.
In that case,
Okay.
could I
Trees will be gone and we're definitely gonna create a
And-
swale and we'll look at it.
be in
It'll be
compliance with the code for managing the water on the site? Any other comment from the public in that case? Rob, who would like to make a motion with those two conditions? I'm probably on the last point.
You got it, Rob?
They got it.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a demolition permit to demolish the existing structure.
I'll second it.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a land clearing permit to clear existing vegetation from the building site.
I would second that.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
Finally, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a level 3 architectural site plan review for the construction of a new 5,719 square foot, single-story West Indies style, single-family residence, relocate pool, modify driveway, and add new landscaping. With the provision that the drainage situation is addressed prior
And the trees.
and the trees are removed
From the water
prior
line.
I'll second.
to the city commission, town commission.
Got it.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And so we move on to the next application.
Jeez. Oh.
Thank you, everyone. And,
All right.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you, Miguel. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jason Bibbins from Ferguson and Chemami Architects. I'm here with also John Lang and Mark Powell. I'm here to seek approval for some minor architectural adjustments to an application that that was recently approved a couple months back. Just the overall site plan here. Main adjustments is the pool and the slight terrace. Those were recently approved. We're switching the materials of those two areas to a green tile. And then the other plan adjustments, which John Lang will talk about in more depth, is a new driveway and a garden courtyard entering the front door of the property. You can go to the next slide, please. So on the architectural changes, the elevation on the top is the previously approved elevation. So we're seeking approval here, really minor adjustments. We're eliminating the transom above the door to just a simple single door itself. And then we're requesting approval for some very simple applied pilasters to simplify kind of the vocabulary and language of that building. We can go to the next slide, please. On the east elevation, could you pan up just slightly, please? Thank you. On the east elevation at the top is the previously approved elevation. Just to point out to the board, the existing east elevation to the right is the existing house as it stands today. We are not here to seek any approval on any portion of that building, but we are asking for approval to introduce a freestanding painted white aluminum pergola with a flat seam metal roof, matching the red copper roof that's currently on the house itself. Over in the small accessory building, previously approved for 2 French doors with transoms. And again, we're simplifying those doors and asking for approval for a single fixed unit between the 2 doors. And just for the committee as well, the improved glazing is less than the 50% wall to window ratio. I should point out for the pergola regarding square footage, we are asking for an add of 466 square feet, which is the footprint of the pergola. That puts us at a FAR of 13,720, which is under what is allowable for the property at 19,000. If we can go to the next slide, please. On the south elevation, pretty straightforward. The main existing elevation at the top of the plan hasn't changed. That was what was previously approved. And the only intervention we are proposing is the freestanding open pergola on the terrace out towards the east. I'm going to talk about the steps on the next elevation. And the last request for approval we're seeking is there's an existing set of stairs that currently comes to the west, which is encroaching and making the lower garden a little tight for the kids to play in. So the idea is we'd like to remove those steps and reorganize the steps so they're pressed closer to the building itself and come down towards the service door just to the right. And then this is a quick 3D sketch of the pergola that we're proposing. The one thing I should point out is we are looking to add integrated motorized screens that could be lowered or opened if insects are a problem. But a very simple metal structure separate of the building itself. With that, I'll turn it to John Lang, who can talk about the landscaping.
Good morning. For the record, John Lang, Lang Design Group, Landscape Architects. Can we go up a little farther to the colored site plan? If it's in there, probably easiest to see it. I just want to show you some additional work that we're hoping to do on the property that you haven't seen yet. Not in there. Okay, we'll go back to the, go back.
Yeah, we've got it.
Okay, so let's go back to the non-colored one then. And if you guys would refer to the colored one, it's probably easiest to see there.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk away from the microphone.
Currently, in this area right here at the front door, there is a large motor court. The driveway comes in here and the service court is here. We would like to change this. This is very harsh. It doesn't look good, doesn't feel good going in the front door. What we're proposing is putting a large entry court garden here and just extending the parking for 2 cars right to here. And the driveway, I'm reconfiguring slightly. And the reason we're reconfiguring the driveway, the entrance stays the same, the curb cut stays the same. We're just going to redo the landscape along the street to get that up to speed. But to differentiate between service and main entrance, so I've reoriented it so it's a little more direct of a shot to the front door. And then if you'll look at your color render, you'll see that this is now a entry garden with a small fountain, garden, more elegant, more sophisticated, and a nicer way to enter a house than just simply getting out of your car and driving the front door. And are we talking about seawalls as well?
Yes.
Okay, so also the seawall that's going in here, we've worked with DEP, got with their people in that, the site sections, and we're gonna replant that with all the recommended plant materials here.
So I hope that wasn't confusing looking at the colored, but I think it's simpler to see it there. Did I go too fast?
No, keep going.
Keep going, no.
Okay, well, that's really the bulk of my presentation. I mean, I'm open for any questions that you may have. It's just a slight realignment of the driveway, differentiating 2 materials from limestone to a different, less material than actually existing material that's there, and putting that courtyard at the front door, making a more of a landscape garden feel than a big motor court, kind of a commercial driveway feel. And also along the north side of the driveway, I should say that we talked about this last time, but we're filling in all of the gaps to the north so that there's no visual privacy bleeds. You don't see much of this house from the road. The owners are very private. They intend to stay private. They just want to fix the good, leave the good, and fix the bad. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Straightforward.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Very nice.
In that case, if there's any questions, can I ask for motions, please?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a North Ocean overlay permit to modify existing landscape, remove old vegetation past prime, revegetate to ensure privacy from road to property, and re-landscape along perimeter wall to give better appearance from the street within 50 feet of A1A inside the North Ocean overlay district.
I'll second. Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power.
Yes.
Mr. Canfield.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of land clearing permit to clear existing vegetation and replace to bring property up to standard.
I'll second.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power.
Yes.
Mr. Canfield.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a special exception per section 70-75 to replace the seawall.
I'll second.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power.
Yes.
Mr. Canfield.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. With that.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a level 3 architectural site plan review to permit a freestanding minor accessory structure, a pergola, add an additional window to the east elevation, a new driveway, and landscape renovations, including replacing the seawall with the following conditions. Any minor modifications to the approved landscaping shall be submitted to the town manager for review and approval, and any major modifications shall be brought back to the ARPB for review and approval prior to commencement of landscaping.
I'll second.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power.
Yes.
Mr. Canfield.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty.
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. Thank you for your application.
We thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And so we move on to our fifth and final application of the morning. Thank you. So as we all, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karen Engelhard, CFO at Gulfstream School.
Grace Smith, head of school.
So we are back to present some options, hopefully, that are viable for our new storage unit so that we can provide a hot lunch program to our students next year and in future years. Given the plans before you, there were two options that we came up with. The first being enclosing the storage unit in a hedge, in a Kalusia hedge, which actually matches all the Kalusia hedges around the neighborhood, which we already have on the property, and blends in with our existing landscape. It would grow quickly. It would encompass the entire unit so that you actually wouldn't probably see it at all. It's environmentally friendly, native to Florida, quick growing, and naturally hurricane proof. It requires no permit and creates a barrier from cars so they don't hit the structure that will be existing there. It's easy and cost effective to replace. So that was our first option that you see in the plans. There was a hedge around the cooler unit. The other option was some sort of louvered fence that we would have painted white, which is matching the existing structures that we have on campus. It creates an aesthetically pleasing curtain to hide the cooler and the structure. It would be designed to meet hurricane requirements and blend in with the existing structure that we have around our dumpster, which is right next adjacent to it. And so we are hopeful that one of those two plans meets your requirements so that we can move forward with this plan.
Any questions?
Can you guys just describe for me what this, I know what the purpose of the building is, but what is the material that you're using for this shed?
So it's a prefabricated, it's a dry and cold storage, and it's prefabricated. I don't know the exact type of material that they use. They've used it at other schools. I'm guessing it's some sort of insulated. It's not corrugated metal. It looks kind of, I think, like, I don't know what it actually looks like. I'm trying to think, because we had one at the school I worked at previously. But it just looks like a container, but not a storage, like when I say container, it's not like a corrugated metal container.
It doesn't look like a pod,
It's like drywall.
like a moving pod or something like that. It looks like drywall. I think it's
like drywall,
probably
like-
some type of aluminum, but it looks like drywall.
Yeah.
And how are you powering it?
Oh, it'll be fed into our power structure. So we have a panel, it is adjacent to the back of our field house. And we have power inside the field house, which is directly across from it, that they will go underneath and tap into the power there.
Okay. Bob, you had some pretty strong views in the last.
Yeah,
meeting.
no, I did. Dr. Smith was kind enough to email me a couple of photos of the exterior enclosure, including some landscaping, and in a phone call, I said, oh, this looks, pretty good, because I was thinking maybe I'd kind of gone overstepped and said that, I want you to do this with a pitched roof and tile and concrete block and everything. And I didn't know that the town had kind of told you guys in some pre-application meetings that they really wanted the enclosure to match the, the structures at the school. If I can, I'm reading some of my notes, but the ARPB said, well, whatever. So I'm reading a lot of the staff notes, and they're suggesting that this enclosure that is currently contemplated isn't enough, and that they're seeking a concrete block and stucco exterior with a pitched roof with some tile on it.
Yep.
And I don't know if you were aware of that, but I'm kind of reading that here this morning.
Yeah.
And
you're right.
which kind of news to me, but that's sort of what staff is saying. In fact, the staff is recommending a denial of this motion.
It was in our pack that we got here, the conversations you've had, and as Bob said.
So I just would like to say to Greg, because I said, yeah, this looks fine. It kind of did the job for me, putting the aluminum around the sides and keeping it a flat roof, because I didn't want to go to too much trouble. The school, we're all big fans of the school. I didn't want too much of an expense.
I think that putting in the hedge around it that is going to totally cover it is really a very good idea.
Oh, of course it's a good idea.
I like the idea.
Well, it would never be approved without that.
Yeah.
That's a must.
But I don't see the need really, if it's going to be totally covered, I don't see the need for putting tiled roofs and stuff like that. I'd love to hear if the town has any, feeling that as to why the hedge wouldn't take care of this.
Well, the code doesn't specifically address hedging as a way of buffering an accessory building to the main structure. So it doesn't address that. It does discourage, carports, metal storage sheds, and it does talk about that these sheds should be integrated with the architectural style of the main building. And so whenever we have a house come in here and they want to go to Home Depot and buy it, one of these metal storage, that they can't do that. That it needs to be a structure that's got architectural styles related to the main structure. We do have a lot of times that dumpsters, that's the way dumpsters are buffered and hidden. And it just, we're used to that with, commercial type structures that have dumpsters. And it, in our opinion, it looked too much like an area where a dumpster perhaps was being buffered by the vegetation.
Well, I sort of feel that this addresses the issue at the most cost-effective way for the school. I view maybe I'm the only one, but I view the school as being a very contributory addition to the community. And I feel willing to give them a little bit more.
We're not.
And I think the way you've explained it, Greg, that there isn't that clear distinction of what hedges should do. We have some wiggle room, is a terrible word, but we do have some wiggle room.
Yeah.
My question is, with all landscaping, we always ask for what's it like when it goes in, not planting that. What's your feel for, I mean, it's, you know, the way the graphic looked great when it's in place and it's built and it's hidden, and that's my opinion. But what will it be from day one?
Our plan is to get the largest hedges that we possibly can so that we create that enclosure, that curtain immediately. So that would be our plan, is to go out there and try to find, and you know how quickly they grow, quite quickly. But that was not our intention at all, to get little baby plants and let them grow. It would be go out there and find the biggest plants we can get, even if they find mature plants that they relocate to our location.
Do you have irrigation in there? Would that have to be put in?
We already have it because we have other landscaping in that area as well. Anything we don't have that we might need more, we could certainly add.
Is there anything to encourage it to get up to
Absolutely.
that height as quickly as possible?
Absolutely.
So I've shown my hand, as they say. I think it's cost effective. I think it's a good.
This is a level 3, so the commission's going to.
The commission's going to want to see it.
I just bring that up.
But that's my opinion.
I would say coming up with that hedge solution prior to the commission meeting might be beneficial, so you can show exactly what's going to be installed at what height versus what you're hoping for.
Great.
So
Absolutely.
I would also say that maybe you guys want to show some financial differences between what it would take to build.
Yeah, we did on the plans. There was a little blurb on what each thing would cost.
No, I mean to build a structure.
To do a concrete block.
So that you
should
could
do that.
show
We
the
can surely
difference.
do that.
We already have
We
dots
actually,
and
we have
estimate.
those numbers.
That might be.
What roughly is that number? You ballpark?
$150,000
Versus.
150,000, about versus 5,000 to put some hedges around there and some landscaping.
Well, but the aluminum is at cost.
Oh, the aluminum, I
The
think was
30,000.
about $30,000.
Because you wouldn't have that structure anymore, right? If you had to put.
I mean, that's, by the way, that sounds a little expensive.
Yeah.
You might be able to get some other builders.
The staff would prefer the landscaping as to the aluminum.
Oh, yeah.
So
No,
would ours. It's not, like I said,
No,
naturally,
Oh, no?
I think you could just do that.
No,
the
Are
hedges.
you're suggesting just to hedge and get rid of the aluminum?
The aluminum, I mean, that alternative definitely.
that doesn't solve any problem. That just creates another structure to look at.
And highlights it even more.
Yeah.
Okay. As Bob said, this does go to a level 3, but this is our call, guys. So could I ask for a motion?
We have a couple of things.
Bob wants to-
$145,000 to build that concrete block with a pitch seems a little high. I mean, but maybe look into it. I'm thinking about how the town is going to come down. I just know the feelings of what they're doing. But somebody wants to make a motion.
So on the motions, just sorry, Rob, to sit away. Just Trey, can you just remind us in terms of, because in terms of the motions, we haven't got anything to do on the amendments, correct? Because it does make it clear about the third amendment, but we don't actually have to do anything. There's nothing for the board to do.
So there is something in your packet that. You got me. There is something in your packet that is the third amendment to the developers agreement. You do need to make a motion for that. You are one of the required boards under the statute that needs to view it, and as part of the multiple appearances before a body of the municipality. So that we've kind of talked about that a lot, but just for the record, there are a few amendments. It increases the school cap from 250 to 300 students. It allows this particular structure to exist outside of the building envelope as defined in the original developers agreement. That was created to, I guess, limit the impact to the neighboring residential properties. So they wanted to keep it in that sort of footprint. So the commission is kind of moved in favor of pursuing that, and that's kind of why we're hearing this today. And then also there's some modified language about an annual payment that the school is making to the town, which really just offsets the cost of a police presence being there at pickup and drop off during the school year.
Okay. Thank you, Trey. Rob, you up first.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the third amendment to the developers agreement, which includes an increase to the maximum number of students that may be enrolled in said school at one time from 250 to 300. Permits the construction of a 625 square foot building outside the building envelope as defined in the developers agreement, and modifies the language and amount of the annual payment for the town's services.
Second, please.
I'll second that.
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
Yes.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. Ooh, yeah.
So we have to create a new motion. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend denial.
No,
Nope.
no.
What you said that.
Approval.
Approval. Switch, that's all you, yeah, we're just switching that.
But we're
Okay.
saying that,
With the hedge.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of a level 3 architectural site plan review to permit the construction of a new 25 by 25, 625 square foot, 9-foot, 6-inch in height cooler dry storage unit in the parking lot of the existing property to provide food storage for a student and staff lunch program at the Gulfstream School, provided it is surrounded by the proposed hedge solution.
And a second.
Second.
Renee?
Mr. Roach,
Yes.
Mrs. Power,
Yes.
Mr. Canfield,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Doherty,
No.
Chairman Murphy.
Yes. And with that,
Thank you.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Thank
thank you very much. We now move.
And we appreciate you sitting through. 2
Yes,
hours.
yes.
Yeah, I am.
staying here, and I got so much work done.
So guys, I know time is of the essence. I'm going to ask Trey. Trey, I see your item by staff.
So I was going to ask, given the time, that we defer that to the next meeting and have that discussion at a subsequent time.
Please, because Renee said, and here's what have we got at the next meeting? Is it just one application at the moment?
So far, yes.
Okay, yeah, great. Any items by board members? Staff? No. Public? No. In that case, thank you, everyone. Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.
Very good.
Stand correct.
Welcome.